as a representative of a large district in South Texas and now the chairman of the Postal Subcommittee, I hear from a lot of postal workers. They'll come into my office, we'll have a nice chat, or they'll stand out in front of my office with signs. Either way, I hear a lot from it, and I've made some promises to them, and that is we need to get down to some of the numbers with pre-funding. And I know we've talked about that a lot today, but I want to be perfectly clear on this so there can be no question. My fear is some of these postal employees are getting some bad information through the grapevine or from some outside organizations. Correct me if I'm wrong here. If we were to do away with all pre-funding completely, the Postal Service would still be losing money. Is that correct?
That's correct.
If we were to go to, as some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have suggested, a more actuarial-based with the Senate, we would save about $2 to $3 billion over what the pre-funding requirement is today. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And we're not, and as Mr. Desjardins asked, we're not pre-funding for people who haven't been born yet, and we're looking at a rational deal, accumulating money to pay these postal workers the benefits that they've been promised. If we don't put money away, it's going to be up to the whim of Congress as to whether or not there's money there to pay them if they don't accrue for it. Would that be a fair statement?
That's absolutely correct.
All right. Mr. Barnett, would you agree that those are accurate statements as well?
Mr. Chairman, I agree.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about Saturday. Chairman Issa, Mr. Barnett, asked you which law you chose to break, whether the pre-funding payments or the Saturday delivery. My question on that is, as a business person, if I had the opportunity to go to court to save several $billion, even if my lawyer said, well, it's a questionable issue, it might be safer to go ahead, I think I might have gone ahead with it. You pointed out earlier in your testimony that there was a concern about the money that the private sector would have to do to adapt their shipping mechanisms and like. Aren't you putting didn't you already put a similar burden on the private sector when you said, well, we're going to stop Saturday delivery for all but packages in priority mail? Didn't a good many of those people already spend the money and at least start to make those plans and adaptations?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any personal knowledge of what they've started, but there is no disagreement. The Board has been unanimous now for over 3 years that it is going to be necessary to go from 6 days to 5 days. Okay. It will happen. I can't tell you when, but it will happen.
All right. And I want to get one more thing to meet my commitment to my postal workers to get to the bottom of this. An actuarial-based prepayment of retirement and health care benefits is consistent. That's what's required by Federal law of UPS, Federal Express, and almost every other corporation in the country. It would be very similar.
I'm informed that it's not exactly. I can provide a detailed answer.
Would you provide the details of what an actuary, how it would be different from what private sector companies are doing? Because I would like to know that, and I would like to make that available to the postal employees that I represent and throughout the country.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alondo. And since the Chairman has stepped out, I'll recognize myself first for questions. And I would like to start with you because the pre-funding really is a big issue that we're facing. And I want to be perfectly clear on where you and the members of your organization are on that. You do believe we do need to set aside some money. Are we really just arguing about how much money we set aside, or do you want to you don't want to do away with pre-funding completely, correct?
We believe pre-funding is a good thing, and the gentleman from GAO said this about 5 times this morning, if it's done in a fiscally responsible way.
Do you think
it's not fiscally responsible to exhaust your borrowing authority, to drain your savings, and to use all your resources to take money from one of your pots and put it in another pot. It's not fiscally responsible. As long as the Postal Services have the surpluses to do what was intended to then fund for pre-funding, we think it's a great idea.
All right. So if there's right now, we heard testimony from the GO that if we completely did away with pre-funding, there would still be a deficit. So under your scenario there, we would put no money away for your retirees. Is there a number that they've got to work into their budget and their planning that is a reasonable amount to put away to ensure that your retirees are paid the benefits and given the health care that they were promised?
Yeah, the number is $45 billion. That's how much we've put away. We funded
but that's
more
not
than
going to
any other
last.
agency.
So you want to zero it out and just use what you got until it's out, or until the Postal Service is making money?
No, when we have surpluses, we should continue to pre-fund. But as we are right now, we've got $45 billion. Again, you have to look at the source of the pre-funding. It was thought that at the time in 2006, looking out over, the gentleman earlier said it wasn't 75 years. He's correct. It's more like 92 years is what the amount of time that they did the assumptions for about a 92-year period. What he's confused about is the time that they were going to take to pay it off was 50 years. The 10-year payment.
Would you all support I think the term was actuarial-based accrual system, or payments?
We believe, yes, we've got several options in my written testimony. There's several ways to pre-fund. We do believe in pre-funding. We do believe it should be fiscally responsibly done, and we do believe it should be done out of the surplus.
All right, so I guess we're arguing about what fiscally responsible is. And again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're saying only if there's a profit do we put some, or an excess do we put some away. We don't actually find efficiencies or make changes to our service, dropping down to 5 days, for instance, or raising postal rates to get there.
Mm-hmm. What is not fiscally responsible is taking all your money out of the bank, all your borrowing authority, and all your resources, and pretending that you're in default to put money of your own into another account and call it pre-funding for the future.
All right, we'll go to the Postmaster General. Thank you, as well for being here. I would imagine there's a slightly different opinion on your part as to what needs to be done with respect to meeting the obligations that and keeping the promises you made to current employees.
Yes. First of all, we stand very firm in making sure that we keep the promises to the employees. This organization, when we were hired, Fred and I, we had the promise of health care, and we have to live up to that. I would tell you that rather than worrying about how much to pre-fund, we need to step back and take the suggestion that you heard from both of us, that we take over our own health care plan, and truthfully, we could work it within the FEHBP. I have no issue with that. As long as we were able to compete it, make it affordable, and cut the cost for our current employees, and then use the full effects of Medicare, which we pay into. The ratepayers are paying Medicare, postal employees are paying Medicare, and conduct our health care like any other business. As a matter of fact, Mr. Chairman, if we did that, we are on record in our testimony showing that we actually break even and there is no further need to pre-fund. We would provide top quality health care for all the postal employees employed right now and into the future.
Well, I know the OPM is looking at some of the same ideas you want for the entire Federal workforce.
I would love to spend more time with the OPM, and I would invite them to spend time with us as a group, the unions and the management associations, and we can sit down and go through step by step. What we find with the OPM, truthfully, Mr. Chairman, is they play four corners offense on us, and that was something that happened, that used to happen before the time clock for basketball. So we'd encourage you guys to take the lead, force that issue. We're ready to step up.
All right, and let's talk a little bit about the current path the Postal Service is on. Assuming we in Congress do nothing and you continue down the path you're on, what are your plans for when you run out of money?
Well, let me address that in a couple ways. Number one, we are accused very often of moving the goalposts here. The reason the goalposts move is because we have very efficient employees who do a great job every day, and we have worked very hard to make up a substantial drop in revenue. I told you the first-class revenue is dropping. It will continue to drop. We think we will lose another $5 billion in first-class revenue. We'll make some up from a package perspective. That will close some of the gap. But what we need is congressional action now so that we do not face that problem. The biggest problem we face is a concerned confidence in the mail itself. That's something that goes across all postal employees and including the industry itself. So the faster you act to give us the flexibility to get this place back on firm financial footing, the better the entire industry will be.
Thank you very much. I see I went over, and we'll give Mr. Cummings 6.5 minutes.